Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Marvelous Movie Mondays. Hello, I am one of your hosts, Dylan Randazzo.
And I'm your other host, Kelsey Kilpatrick.
That's right. I just wanted to say one thing off the bat. As you can see, I am in a very different studio than you're used to seeing. It's because it's crazy, hellish move-in week. Like a lot of moving is being done. I'm looking for a new apartment in the city, and I'm in my old apartment in the city right now that I currently have a lease for, and I'm back and forth between New Jersey, which is where my normal studio is. So there's a lot of craziness going on in my life right now. But I needed to make sure I got this podcast in because we promise you every Monday, and we are going to deliver on that promise. So it's a new change of atmosphere. We've got BB-8 here beside me, even though he's not Marvel at all. But we're here. We're here to podcast. We make it happen, rain or shine, or New York or New Jersey, wherever I am, wherever Kelsey is, we will make it happen. How you doing, Kelsey?
I'm doing great. I just had to reach back and adjust. My Harry Potter fell over on my
Mm-hmm.
Rubik's Cube.
Again,
For
it's always the non-Marvel characters. It's like BB-8 and Harry Potter, the stars of
they
the show today.
yeah, they don't want to cooperate, but I have my One True Love up on the top shelf.
There you go.
Um
I actually got.
oh, who do you have in the
You can see
back
it.
there?
I got a little baby Groot with
Oh, he's
his
so
little candies.
cute.
Yeah, he's got a little bag of I guess it's jelly beans or maybe like colored popcorn,
Yep.
Skittles. I have no idea.
Yeah,
So
he eats that in Guardians 2 on the
well,
ship.
there you go. All right, so we are talking today about the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So we're already in another show. We only had 1 week of off-season podcasting to do, and we did a great villains ranking. You could check that up there in the top right now. Go click it. It is long, but as we warned you in the beginning, if you put it on 1.5 or 2 speed, you'll get right through it in normal hour and a half runtime. We don't want our podcast to be longer than Marvel movies. We just had a really insightful discussion, so it was a lot of fun.
Yep.
Coming off of that, now I feel like we have much less to talk about now, but also a lot to talk about. So I'm excited for this.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like you think that I didn't like the episode, but I liked it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. No, it's not that I didn't think you liked the episodes because you just weren't like saying anything about it like in our
Mm,
conversations. And I was like, wow, I wonder if she like just didn't like it or didn't isn't because usually you'll have something to say about the episode, even
sure.
if you're not giving in your complete thoughts. You'll be like, oh my god, we got to talk about this or that.
Sure,
Um,
sure, sure.
yeah, but
Well, I wanted to keep
yeah.
my cards close to my chest this
Right. Well,
episode.
Kelsey, you will kind of take the lead today because some behind the scenes stuff. I have been dealing with a lot of health issues, not related to anything COVID, but rather COVID vaccine related. I had, the typical side effects, the headaches and a little bit of chills and aches and pains all weekend. So I did watch the episode. I'm feeling great now, but the past weekend I haven't had a lot of time to like really sit down and like type out my notes and like really get my thoughts together for this podcast. I figured, Kelsey's really an expert at taking all the notes, and I had a rough reaction to the first vaccine, but I'm happy to do my part, and I'm hoping the rest of the week is smooth sailing, no headaches, no nothing. I got a nice full night of sleep last night, so I'm ready to podcast. How about you, Kels?
I'm ready to go.
Sounds good.
I got a day off on Friday. I worked a crazy shift yesterday, but I've had today off, so I'm feeling refreshed and ready to go, same as you,
Cool,
Dill.
cool.
Should we
All
talk
right, you
about
want
our
to get in?
news?
Yeah, let's get into our news, Kelsey. What is your news that you're bringing?
I
As you know, every week we bring in our own Marvel headlines, whether it be MCU or other Marvel related. We bring our Marvel news first and foremost. So, Kelsey, what is yours?
Well, it's not that exciting, but exciting to me just because I'm a big fan of the show that he's in, Sherlock, and I love this actor a lot. So I just thought I'd share that Martin Freeman, who played Agent Ross in Black
Hmm.
Panther 1, is going to be returning to play that character in Black Panther 2. And I love that because I love him. I
Yeah,
think he's adorable. I think he's so charming. And so I'm excited, doubly excited as I can be about Black Panther 2,
right.
being that we lost the one and only Chadwick Boseman. So
Yeah,
that's where I'm at.
that's gonna be interesting to see how they maneuver around that. I know Ryan Coogler has said that he is having a tough time writing the script, and I don't blame him. It's
Mhm.
been a tough time for everyone as fans and production alike. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and what direction they bring Ross's character, especially since you obviously don't have T'Challa. You probably won't have Killmonger, at least not the same version, I guess, that we saw earlier because he died too. The
Mhm.
character died. So it'll be interesting for sure. My Marvel news is a lot more Easter egg and kind of like really deep cut based. I'll explain it in a sec. First off, Kelsey, do you remember the scene where Thor in Endgame is playing Fortnite with Korg?
Yes, I know
Did-
exactly where you're going with this because I
yeah. Okay.
got
So
I got a very funny TikTok that I'll talk about once you're done.
yeah. So I have three video clips to show you. First is going to be the inspiration behind this whole joke that has now made a full circle joke. I'll explain it at the end. It'll make a lot more sense. But there's a clip from Endgame that relates to a recent Falcon and the Winter Soldier Xbox commercial, which then relates to another movie inside the Marvel universe. So we're having the Marvel Cinematic Universe is now expanding not just to TV but to commercials for video gaming as well.
My
So here's the
goodness.
original clip. Here's the original clip from Avengers Endgame, really
That
quick.
kid on the TV just called me a dickhead again.
Noob Master.
Yeah, Noob Master 69.
Yeah, so Noob Master 69 is the guy that Thor is battling on Fortnite. He says Noob Master, and then Korg is obviously like, yep, Noob Master 69. And this recent Xbox commercial, starring Anthony Mackie, who plays Sam, just surfaced. It just came out, promoting both Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Xbox, and this is the ending of that commercial.
My gamer tag is Noob Master 69. My cousin made it.
So there we go. That's Noob Master 69 for you. And if you saw, his name tag said Aaron. But there's another layer. There's one more layer, Kelsey, and I think you know this, but our viewers at home might not. After I figured this out, after I saw this commercial, I was like, oh, Noob Master, that's Endgame. And then I was like, wait, his thing is Aaron. And I recognize that face. Take a look at this clip from Captain America, The Winter Soldier.
Can I help you guys with anything?
Oh, no, my fiance was just helping me with some honeymoon destinations.
If you guys need anything, I've been Aaron. Thank you.
I've been Aaron. So that is the same Aaron that is Noob Master 69 in the Xbox commercial. That is the Xbox fiend foe to Thor's character in Endgame. So this complete full circle 180. That is my news. 360, I guess. That is my news for the week. It's not anything profound, but it's just pretty cool that they still keep these little Easter eggs and little inside jokes running, you know?
Yep. I thoroughly enjoyed that. How I found out about all of this was I was TikTok messaging with our friend Sean from Les Mis. Yeah. So we've been just talking about we've really been going talking about mainly Mephisto and how everyone kind of went off the rails with that whole theory.
Yeah.
So he sent me this very funny TikTok where obviously it was a joke, the person who made it, but they said, oh, like it wasn't even his gamer tag, like Aaron's gamer tag wasn't Noob Master 69. He said it was his cousin made it for him. So obviously we all know that his cousin is Mephisto.
Oh boy, yeah, that's.
And
I feel like the Mephisto speculation is just never going to end. But we are not going to talk about it anymore. He's not in this series, and if he is, he is. But we're not going to even.
But is he though?
We're not.
I don't know. I have some stuff
the,
here.
Wait, really?
No.
Okay, well, I was going to say,
No.
I was like, because we talked about it beforehand, that this episode's going to be a little lighter because, there's not as much speculation as WandaVision. So now we're segueing through past the news into the episode. So we're in the episode now. There's a lot less speculation-based stuff. I mean, there's obviously stuff to question and predict as to what may happen, but it's not like this overall, like, what's the big picture here? We very clearly know. We know what the big picture is. It's Sam coming to terms with, having to take on this new role as without Cap, and then it's Bucky kind of, trying to move past his whole past and move past what he has been, because he really hasn't had time to breathe, because he was not there for that 5 years. He was gone. So basically he got snapped away, blipped back, and then this fight happened. So he really has not had time to just kind of be a civilian, and live. So it's a lot about that. That's a basic premise of the, it's not like WandaVision where there's all these layers that we're trying to guess every single week, So that makes this an easier show to talk about, but also maybe a harder show to talk about at the same time, because we don't have that layer of speculation. But Kelsey, overall, give us your little brief synopsis of the episode, as you always so finely and excellently do. If you guys haven't seen our past WandaVision episodes, go check them out. They're a lot of fun, especially for Kelsey's little 2-sentence blurbs she does. So Kelsey, take it away.
If you're going to watch our podcast, listen to our podcast for anything, it's the 2-second synopsis I give. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so episode 1, titled A New World Order. We find out what Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes' lives look like a few months after the blip. Sam works for the Air Force while Bucky tries to adjust to life now that he is no longer the Winter Soldier.
Very nicely done. There, I couldn't have
Thank
said
you.
it better myself. The only thing I could have said better would just be "I am Groot." That is about as much as I could say that could possibly top yours. So, all right, terrible joke. Yeah, I'm tired.
Listen, I love a
Kelsey,
good Groot reference. Don't
yeah,
never
you know, yeah.
apologize for making a Groot
The
reference.
joke didn't come out as much as I thought it would. Not as well as I thought it would. All right, let's go through this episode and talk about it, because there's a lot to unpack still. This is one of the longer episodes. I think it's the longest aside from the series finale of WandaVision. I think this is the longest episode that Disney Plus has given us, because as we know, there are six episodes here rather than the full 9 that WandaVision had. So
yeah, they had to, fill us in on a lot of information. So I see these episodes being, an hour, probably all 6 of them. So,
and Kelsey, you had mentioned off screen before we started, you're thinking of we can go scene by scene, but rather than dissecting every little part of the scene like we did WandaVision, we can just talk about the scene in general and like the most important moments from those scenes that stood out to us, right?
Right. So I still kind of broke it down scene by scene, but instead of like really giving a summary of like all that happens, because the first like 10-15 minutes of the episode is Sam battling it out with this new enemy that we get introduced to, and it just felt silly for me to be like, and then he punches this guy and then he blocks that punch. It's like, we don't have to go through every moment like that. So I really just took notes about, all the important information that they were giving us. So we start off, the first words that we hear of the new series is Sam's conversation that he had with Steve at the end of Endgame. He says, Steve asks Sam, how does it feel? And he says, it feels like it belongs, feels like it's someone else's, referring to the shield, obviously.
Right.
And, we are just looking into how Sam is kind of grappling with taking on the mantle that is being the next Captain America. Is he going to do it? Is he not? That sort of thing. So we find out that he's been working with the Air Force. We jump right into a huge battle scene in the country Tanzania.
Tanzania, yeah, that sounds right.
Is that? But I feel like Tanzania is a real place.
Tunisia, I don't know.
Anyway.
Yeah, our pronunciation for things might not be the best. Forgive us in advance.
I'm going to butcher a lot. I can't even say the word synopsis, so please don't expect me to know how to pronounce foreign countries. So we get introduced to one of the many enemies I feel like we're going to have to go up against throughout this series is LAF. Now, I looked into what LAF might be and what they might stand for. I couldn't find anything, and they brush over it very quickly. The guy's like, oh, they're a part of LAF. And Sam's like, LAF? And then the guy just like keeps talking, just like keeps giving him intel. And I was like, no, wait, I want to know what LAF is as well. But I guess they're not going to give us everything all at once in the first episode. So I guess we'll find that out later. We know that their whole motive, though, is to take advantage of chaos and make some money. So money hungry. And we know that Sam's been working for the Air Force for about 6 months. So that puts the Falcon and Winter Soldier, I would say 6 to 7 months after the blip, right?
Yeah, pretty soon after, yeah.
So then he ends up rescuing the captain, the American Air Force captain that LAF was going up against. He rescues them, and we get introduced to a new character, Lieutenant Torres. Joaquin Torres, I believe, is his first name. And they have this whole conversation where we find out another threat that Sam and Bucky will have to deal with called the Flag Smashers, where they kind of have this like app that almost is kind of like Pokemon Go, but for criminals, where you just kind of scan around where you are. And if you see a handprint plastered somewhere, that means a job is going to take place. They're looking for their followers and everything like that.
Right.
So I looked into flag smashers on the Marvel wiki, and I came across a dude named Carl Mogenthau. That's my best guess at how to
Again,
pronounce his name.
forgive our pronunciations. We're trying our best.
Jill, did you look into this guy at all?
No, I will admit I didn't do a ton of deep dive research on any of these people because I didn't know what was comic, and especially with WandaVision, I didn't want to lead my mind astray to a different person that would end up not being part of it. I think that was part of the thing that ruined WandaVision for a lot of people was the fact that Ralph Boner was Ralph Boner and not someone else, like all these things. So I kind of just like took everything at surface value. What I knew, I knew. What I didn't, I just kind of said, you know what, I guess I'll find out later.
Well, let me educate you. So we find out from Lieutenant Torres that the Flag Smashers objective is to, they want the world to go back to being how it was before the or during the blip.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So they want a world unified without borders. This guy, Carl Mogenthau from the comics, kind of basically has the same objective where he wants to liberate the earth from the oppression of national rule. And he just is a comic book villain that Captain America goes toe-to-toe with. He later joins a organization called Ultimatum. It's like an acronym, though. I'm not sure what it all stands for, but there's dots between all those letters. And it is funded by Red Skull. Now, I didn't go too much deeper into this just because I want us to, like you said, find out the information and look at it as it comes. But that's just my little tidbit on him. And then we find out that from Lieutenant Torres is that people don't know what Cap did at the end of Endgame. They don't know about the whole time traveling and that he was able to go back age to 90 years old and live out his life, because he says that there's a bunch of conspiracy theories surrounding what he's been up to and why he's gone missing. One of them being that he's at a secret moon base on the moon doing missions there. So
here's my one question to you, Kelsey.
Yeah.
Do you think, and I guess this kind of ties into later when he's at that, retirement memorial service thing.
Sure.
Do you think Steve Rogers is actually dead? Because I do not.
I don't think so either. And I wanted to so then we dive. Sam
do you want
says,
to get there later? Yeah.
Yes, because just really quick, just going along the episode, Sam then goes to Washington. We see him donate the shield to the Smithsonian, which literally as it happened, I was like, well, that's going to come back to bite us in the ass. I literally said that just out loud to myself. And
you're handing it over to the government. It's like, well, okay,
it's
now
like, oh, maybe that's not really what Steve wanted. I don't know. And then Sam and Rhodey are having this great conversation about, taking up the mantle of being Captain America. And they're walking through this exhibit all about Bucky and Captain America. So I was looking at all the different things that the museum had to have updated as the world went on. So there's something for the blip. There's like a list of names running for the vanished. There's a whole wall about what happened in New York called Out of Hiding. And then there's a like an exhibit called A Final Mission. And I tried my best. I turned up my brightness all the way in my computer. I put on, I don't wear glasses, but I just got really, really close to my screen. Probably, I probably will now need glasses. That's how close I got to my screen on full brightness. But I was trying so hard to read what was said, because that's my biggest question is, what are they telling the world about Steve if they're not revealing what he did at the end of Endgame? And I also wanted to know if there was, a date or anything that would have said like, oh, Steve Rogers born this date, died this date. But it said, this is, and I'm paraphrasing, this is all that I could read out of it. After the death of Tony Stark, he mourned his friend, retired, and put down his shield, enjoying the world he had fought so hard to protect. And I think some people interpreted the final mission as him going back and putting the stones back where they came from. I just thought they were talking about that, just the final battle with Thanos, when Tony snaps everyone back.
I don't think the time travel is public knowledge. I really don't think they can make it public knowledge, because then so many people will be like, well, I want to bring this back and I want to go fix this and like go kill Hitler, like things like that. Like
Right.
people would kind of almost abuse the time travel if they knew it was a realistic thing, even though, obviously it's very involved, and like I don't think it would be a mainstay. But I do think, they have to keep that under wraps. I think they told the world, we had this big battle with Thanos, because obviously Thanos was on his farm too. They don't need to say he died, unless they said he died before the five years later. But my thought is they probably said there was this big battle with Thanos. We won. We were able to bring everyone back the same way they disappeared, because then you could just say, yeah, we snapped them back, not having to really go into depth about the Infinity Stones. Tony died, Black Widow died, and that's that. Like I really think that's all they had to say, and they all they could say. I think that would make the most logical explanation, because I don't think they would give away all their cards in terms of the time travel thing. So everyone, as far as they know, the young Steve Rogers retired after Tony Stark died, and the only ones who knew he aged were the ones who were there when he did age. And I don't even know how many of them knew. I mean, we know Hulk knew, because Hulk is the one who was standing there, and then Bucky and Sam. We don't even know if like Wanda or Hawkeye, we don't even know if they know that he was older.
I'm trying to think. It just occurred to me: is Captain America in the in memoriam slideshow in Far From Home?
He is, but I don't know.
Do they? So okay, because this comes up to my other point. Because once we learned that this is approximately like give or take 6 months after the blip, this is the timeline that I think it is in my head that I wrote down. So the blip happened, WandaVision happened, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier happened, and then Far From Home all the way at the end. So if he's in that in memoriam thing, is he gonna die at some point during the Falcon and Winter Soldier?
My thought might be that Captain America has died. Steve Rogers is retired, if that makes sense. Like I think it's one of those things where it's like Captain America has died, so we're gonna honor him in memoriam, and that's what this memorial's for as well. But then like Steve Rogers himself retired. Everyone in the world thinks it's the young Steve Rogers who retired, whereas we know it is the reason he's retired is because that version doesn't exist anymore. He is now an old man, and whether or not he's dead or not, the show hasn't really confirmed that. But by the way Sam was talking to Joaquin about it, I got that sense that Sam was like, I know where he is, but like, even if he is still alive, the Cap that he knew and that Bucky knew, that Cap is gone. It is an older Cap who has now lived a full life. He obviously acknowledges Bucky and Sam in Endgame, but it is a different Cap. This is an older Cap that has lived his life with Peggy and has, found that happiness. So even though he might still be alive, I think Captain America himself is gone, because there's no more Cap, because he's too old now to be Cap. And the Cap the Steve that they knew is gone, because now it's an older Steve. So I think there doesn't need to be a direct answer of is he alive or not. It's more just I think the symbolism of Captain America and who Steve was as Captain America is now gone or dead. But we may get answers later as to like, did he actually die? Because at this point we know Peggy Carter's dead. So because she die in Civil War?
Is she dead? Wait, I know that she they have a funeral for her during Civil War, but like,
I'd assume she'd
is that
still die
Peggy
at the same
Carter
point.
dead, and then Steve is with a different timeline Peggy Carter? Because
No, I think that's the same Peggy Carter. It's just like he was able to like live the life with her until she died. I feel like she'd still die in the same timeline. It's very confusing, and I think this is where we've talked a lot about the time travel, like kind of making it very complicated for this whole timeline. Like Loki is going to really go into that when that series comes. So I'm really interested to see exactly how they really make this time travel and this whole switcheroo, see really how that plays into effect. So that's our speculation. I guess that's the most we can speculate for this episode is like what happened to Cap. But I really don't think it matters. I think in the end, it's just like, the Steve that we all knew and that Bucky and Sam knew is gone. Whether or not the old Steve is alive or not doesn't really matter, because what the world knew as Steve and as Captain America is no longer existent. And that's just what I've gathered. But yeah, bad idea to put that shield in the Smithsonian, as we realize at the very end, because it's no longer in the Smithsonian at the end. So,
Right.
Yeah, let's keep going along with this episode, though. And
so then we find out from Rhodey during this scene a little bit more about kind of the state of the world, which is, he says, allies are now enemies, alliances are all torn apart, the world's broken. And I heard this and I was like, wow, imagine just like going 5 long years fighting, trying to put the world back to how it was before 5 years ago. And you do that and you're successful. And it's like worse than it's ever been before.
Yeah.
I was like, that must like stink. I would be like if I was like Rhodey, like who didn't blip away, who like, you know, lived out those 5 long years and then fought so hard to like get Sam back. I was like, I'd be so disappointed.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You know?
Yeah. And we later see like how much of a financial burden it could be also, you know, having all these people gone and then like adjusting to a new lifestyle and having everyone come back. And now it's like, what do we do? You know, how's this going to work with everyone back now? Yeah, it's definitely complicated. I think that is one of the strengths of this episode, and this series is going to be kind of like, you know, addressing that and like seeing how characters are able to move on from that. But that's also part of the reason why, like, I haven't said it yet, but I was not a huge fan of this premiere, just because I feel like it's kind of leaning into the Far From Home thing, which I did like, but you know, where it was not a Tony movie, but it was also a Tony movie, even though Tony wasn't in it. And it's like kind of the same thing here, where it's like, it feels like it's a movie about Endgame still, like it's still processing those events rather than kind of continuing on. And I know it's gonna continue on, so I'm okay with that. But like this episode felt very much of like almost like an epilogue to another thing than its own thing.
Oh, okay.
And so I felt like it was good character development for both of them. But I almost want to just kind of be like, you know, it was tough, but now let's move on. Let's see what your next adventure is. Because I felt like a lot of this episode, like the main character in this episode to me was Captain America, because he was the kind of the looming, you know, force over everything. Yeah, and I'm not saying it's bad. I mean, obviously you need to have your, you know, exposition and you need to kind of transition because these all are connected. And I think that's just the nature of the universe, just that everything's connected. Yeah, but you know, we had that really badass action sequence, and then, you know, you had Rhodey in there. So like there's still a lot of things that keep it exciting. Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that, Dill, because I actually really liked the episode for the reason you didn't like it, where I felt with like, because, you know, I feel like the blip and Thanos was the biggest thing that the Avengers had ever had to deal with. So I feel like it makes sense for the next couple of projects to be kind of like half dealing with the aftermath of that still, half, okay, we're doing our best to move on to the next thing. Because because with WandaVision, it's like, yes, WandaVision takes weeks after the blip, like literally like few weeks after. But it's really like we're in this false reality that Wanda created in, you know, out of her own head and her literal like, you know, powers and abilities and all that. So we don't see really what the rest of the world looks like and feels like a few weeks after half the population comes back, you know? And then the first thing that we got after Endgame was Far From Home. And that takes place like, I would say almost like it takes place at some point in the summer. The blip was in October, so it's almost been a full year since the blip. So at that point, the world's getting a little bit more back together enough that kids were able to go on a high school trip to the other side of the world, which I think is a little improbable now that I'm saying it out loud. But I liked how this episode and like I guess I see what you're saying, where like as a pilot it wasn't the strongest, just because it really should have jumped more into like what's next for them rather than this is what we're still dealing with kind of thing. But I feel like as the MCU as a whole, this was like really strong because I liked how it dealt with what like everyday people have to deal with,
for sure,
you know, post blip.
Yeah, I think it was yeah, in the context of the giant picture, it works. But like, yeah, as its own standalone series, I'm like, I almost wish like this was almost tacked on to the end of Endgame. But I guess you couldn't do that. Obviously, you
Right.
couldn't put this whole hour after Endgame. And I know a lot of people are going to be hearing this and say, well, Wanda, the whole show was based around her trauma from Endgame. Yes, but it wasn't like from the get go her being like, if they had done the linear approach to her, like if they had shown everything from episode 8 of WandaVision in episode 1 of her like upset and her going to Sword and like getting Vision's body and him not being there and her making the hex, I don't think it would have been as effective. I think because you let us kind of figure out what world we were in and then went into the specifics about that, that's what made that effective. Whereas this, it's like starting off the bat with like, okay, let's talk about the last thing and how we're going to transition into this thing. So I guess both shows are very similar in how the characters deal with the grief that they've had from Infinity War and Endgame. I just think WandaVision was more interesting way to address it and to present it and structure it. And I think this show is, it has a potential. I do think it has a potential. It just, I was a little underwhelmed. I think just also because WandaVision was so innovative and unique that from the pilot, even if you weren't 100% on board with what was going on, you were at least intrigued, and it felt so new and different. And I think the episodic format really worked for WandaVision. Whereas this, I'm like, when it ended, I was like, well, I just want to see what's next. It's almost like they paused the movie rather than it being the end of its own episode, So I almost felt like these 6 episodes are going to work more as like a giant movie, whereas WandaVision, it was like very clear each episode was its own unique entity. So those are like my nitpicks, and I wanted to get those out of the way now because we do have so much more to talk about. We're only at the beginning of the episode, but I wanted to get those nitpicks out now because I know it's going to get better, and I know there's so much potential, and I love these 2 actors, and I love their characters and what their characters have been going through. I love how they get the spotlight, so I do like a lot of this show, what it's setting up, but it didn't reel me in like WandaVision did, and I think that's just safe to say for a lot of people that it's just never going to capture the same uniqueness that WandaVision had.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's normal. So that was those were my critiques. I know we're still plowing through the episode breakdown, but just wanted to get those out of the way now because I don't want to end this episode on like a downer, like, oh, Dylan didn't like it. Like I did, I wasn't in love with it. I do think it has some room to grow, but at the same time, I think it shows some potential. So, Kelsey, let's get back to this breakdown because I've talked and rambled enough.
Totally. So then we cut to what Bucky's been up to. We actually cut in the middle of a nightmare Bucky's having about him as the Winter Soldier. And then we cut to him in therapy, to which I said out loud, oh, good, Bucky's in therapy. That's good. And then we find out later on the line, it's government mandated therapy for him being pardoned for what happened in Civil War. So that's good. I mean, it's like I wish he had gone to therapy. He had made the choice for himself to go to therapy. Yeah. But I understand it being government mandated. It's definitely better than like, sitting in a prison cell. So then we learn from him in his therapy session that he's going around and making amends with all the people who either wronged him or used him while he was under the Winter Soldier persona, and he has 3 rules to go about it. He can't do anything illegal, nobody can get hurt, and then the last rule is that he just says simply, my name is James Barnes, I am no longer the Winter Soldier, I forgive you for X, Y, and Z. To which we see that he's really struggling with, because the one person that they show us that he did try to do this method with was he did something illegal. He like tapped into their car. He hurt the passenger that was with the driver, and he said his little spiel at the end, which was the only thing that he did right. We also find out that he's been ignoring his texts from Sam. So Sam's been trying to reach out to him, but he's been distant. And honestly, Bucky was like my favorite part of the episode. Like his whole storyline and like dealing with what he now has to go through. Because if you think about it, he has to deal with everything that Steve was dealing with from, really we see him dealing with it, in the Avengers and in Winter Soldier, you know, being this man at a time and trying to, you know, grasp the world. And, you know, he keeps his little notebook of all the things that he's missed, and he's trying to, you know, educate himself and assimilate himself into this world. And now Bucky has to do that all by himself. And this realization just really broke my heart. Like Steve, like if you think about it, like Steve really abandoned him to just live in the 21st century just so he could like be with Peggy, which, you know, was sweet at the time in Endgame. But now I'm looking at it, I'm like, this friend that you fought so hard to liberate and to free and to be there for, you literally fought Tony Stark. There's a whole movie about you defending your friend's honor to your other friend. And you just kind of left him to deal with all the stuff that you were almost like too cowardly to deal with, dare I say. And it's like, it would have been great if they could have like gotten through this life together, but Steve had to go return all the stones, and it just
and I think that's part of the reason why there's that tension between Sam and Bucky that we later will see, that we saw in the trailers, and that whole like he's not returning my text thing. I think Sam has no reason to be upset with Bucky. I do see why Bucky has reason to be upset with Sam, because after all this, you know, like Sam gets this new shield and Sam's like, wow, yeah, I'll honor you. And what does Cap have for Bucky? And it's really nothing. It's like, and the thing is, Bucky doesn't need a shield. Bucky doesn't need that. That's not what he wants. He just wants Steve, and just he doesn't have it anymore. So, you know, it's sad. You know, you got to put yourself in that perspective. Like Sam, at least, like you're both losing a friend, but Sam's still gaining something, whereas you're losing everything, and you've already lost so much. You know, because remember when Cap was first unfrozen out of the ice, like he was lost. He didn't know what he was doing, and he had the people around him to kind of introduce him to this world, right? I don't think Bucky really does. And we'll later see it with the episode with the date and stuff. Like he's just not there yet. He's not ready to interact with other people because he still hasn't figured it out himself.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I agree. I think Bucky stuff was more interesting because it's not directly related to Endgame like as much as Sam's stuff was with Cap. It's more of like, you know, his overarching like entire life after, you know, the Winter Soldier. Like it's more of an encompassment of all the movies that he's been through rather than just this previous one. It's good stuff.
So then we see that he has this whole friendship with this older gentleman named Yori. And we find out like much later on in the episode that the whole reason why Bucky has befriended this man is because the young boy that we saw him kill in his nightmares is actually turns out to be Yori's son. So it's kind of his way of trying to make amends with this man, even though he really doesn't have to he doesn't want to come to terms with the fact that I'm the reason why your life fell apart. It wasn't my fault. I was brainwashed. I didn't know what I was doing, but it is totally like me. And you know, I can just see it now. Like once that cat's out of the bag, like who knows what Yori's going to say or do about it.
I will say one thing about Yori. I loved Yori as a character from the beginning. I thought he was like one of his friends from like when him and Cap were younger and like catching up, because I was thinking, I was like, all of his friends that he had in the 40s are either dead or they're really old right now. So it's like, I was wondering, I was like, is this an old friend from like, because initially we don't really know who he is until the end. We realize it's the father of the guy he killed. But it's like, I was wondering, I was like, is this an old friend from the war that is now old? But then I realized Bucky just gels with older people because he's still in the mindset of a man from the 40s. He is an old man in a younger body. And I was like, it must be, you know, comforting to talk to someone who's got that older slang, older lingo. And he didn't need that really. Like at first I thought, you know, is this an actual friend from the past? And I was like, no, it's not. It's just that he's already so comfortable with him. You know, he's the most comfortable with him of all the characters he comes into contact with, because he shares that nature of being an old man in a young body. And it's sad. It's like, you know, when they say you're like an old soul, like he's literally an old soul.
Literally.
You know, he can only really feel comfort in those older people that he can relate to. Yeah, like when he talks to the daughter or the younger, it's not his daughter, the woman, the waitress, it's like that's much harder for him because it's someone who is like with the times, you know, she understands how to live as a person today, as a young person in this world, where Bucky just doesn't. It's very interesting.
Right, exactly. So then Yori ends up being his wingman for a hot second, and he asks the waitress, her name is escaping me right now, so
Me too.
I'm googling it real fast on
Okay.
IMDb, which I had to do for another character earlier, so I do know that Helmut Zemo is in the
Yeah.
series later on. So I was
We'll
right
get there
with
when we get there.
my
We'll
guess.
get there when we get there. You were right with your guess. I trolled you though.
Oh,
We'll show you next week.
her name's Leah. Her
Leah, right?
name her name's Leah.
Yeah.
So he asks out Leah on a date, and this was honestly my favorite scene of the
Yeah.
whole episode. So he shows up with flowers, which made my heart melt. He
Again,
shows
he's
up
an
with
old soul.
He's
He's
an
an old
old
soul.
soul. He's an old man living in a young guy's body. And she even says, this is the most adorably old-fashioned thing anyone's ever done to me. She asks him if he's, been getting out much since, half the population came back. He said that he tried online dating, but he was confused by all of the tiger photos. To that, I'm like, is he talking about like the filters people would wear of like making their faces like animals? Like, I was very
I don't know.
confused as to what Bucky was trying to
Maybe it's like a Carol
describe.
Baskin thing where like just
Or
a
were
lot of
they
people in that
referencing
area
Tiger
really like.
King?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
I don't know. But then she asks him how old. I just like wrote down all these like cute little things that I noticed throughout the scene because I just loved it so much. I was like, this is such an interesting Bucky that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah,
And
we have not seen him live as a human. Like we really
yeah,
haven't.
we've
We haven't
really only seen him as a
Bucky.
soldier.
And when he is a human, it's with Cap. So it was like
Mhm.
that, still that old soul. Like it was two old guys chatting, but we've never seen him as a human with younger people who are actually 20, 30 years old. He's a 100 and how old is he? 105, something like that.
106, he says.
106. Oh, I was so close.
Yep.
106 in a like 20 or 30-year-old's body. So like it's so different and it's such an interesting dynamic. I agree. I think this was one of the strongest moments because like it really is a new Bucky that we've never seen.
Yeah. She asks him about his gloves. He says that he has poor circulation. Obviously, we know he's trying to hide his metal arm. And then they play Battleship together, which I thought was very interesting. Just so many layers in that.
I wonder if there was an element of PTSD with that too, because it's like, you sunk my battleship. Like, you're playing with a vet who literally was involved with sunken battleships and all that war stuff. So, yeah.
No,
all
literally.
the layers.
So then they've turned it into a drinking game. So every time someone gets a hit, the loser drinks. And then every time a person misses, they drink as well. And she even says like, wow, you can really drink. Just like a nod at Captain America, the First Avenger, where we see Cap trying to drink away his troubles, where he thinks Bucky's dead. And he says, no, ever since I got this serum, my metabolism is just off the charts, so he cannot get drunk. Obviously, we see the same problem here with Bucky as he's just throwing back brewskis with Leah. She starts talking about Yori. She says that, oh, it's so good that you've befriended him because, his son's death really, really got to him, really messed him up. And he just storms out of his date and is like, I'm going to go. I have to go deal with this now. But he gets to his apartment, Yori's apartment, sees the shrine, the homage Yori has made for his son, and just can't bring himself to do it. So he instead gives him some money for lunch earlier that day. Then we cut to some scenes in Louisiana where we see Sam has a sister there who did not blip over the 5 years. So she had to be one of those people that had to, make sense of the world. And then once they had gotten used to what the world was like without half the population, then bam, half the population came right back. So once again, had to adjust to that. And they're kind of having some, she's kind of having some financial difficulties now that we learned that both of their parents have passed away. So they inherited their parents' boat and their parents' house. And she's in the midst of trying to sell the boat because she just simply cannot afford the upkeep. It doesn't run anymore. There's no use for it. So Sam is determined to hold on to his family's legacy. So he is determined to get a loan from the bank. He's like, I'm going to go over the financials, he's gonna, use some of his Avenger clout, if you will, to try and get this loan for them. And before we get to the loan, the scene with the bank, really quickly, we see Lieutenant Torres trying to infiltrate one of those hand app. It was giving me this scene was giving me a lot of like the Purge vibes. Or
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Do you remember that movie we saw, Nerve, with Emma
Yes.
Roberts and Dave Franco?
That is an amazing movie that not many people talk about. That I thought, it's not like the best thing ever made, but it's fun. I recommend Nerve. It's very good. But yes, I got a very very similar like underground like crime.
Yeah, with like the app
unified
and
cults. They've got the
doing
masks.
dares. So we're just talking over each other about Nerve. Very good movie if you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Exciting, funny, super intense, a suspenseful thriller. I'd call it. So he's unsuccessful though. He takes off his mask. He tries to arrest a gentleman, and he just gets completely. He's not a match for this guy. He's completely overpowered to the point where I thought, does this guy have the serum in him? Is he a Winter Soldier? Is he another soldier we have to deal with? That's where my mind went. So maybe we'll find out later on, because just the absolute effortless kick, he just like boom, pelted him right into that lamppost or the car or whatever he ended up hitting. And I was like, and I think even Sam said like, wow, this guy's powerful, once Lieutenant Torres like was on FaceTime with him showing the video. So then we have the scene at the bank where Sam and his sister Sarah are desperately trying to take out a loan so they can save their parents' boat. And the bank teller ends up not approving them because he says that they don't have the finances for the last 5 years, to which Sarah responds, how can you have finances when you don't exist? Like, Sam was gone. That's why he doesn't have any financial records of the last 5 years. And he asks a very interesting question that I've kind of had this entire series, is he asks Sam, how do you make money as an Avenger? Like, do you get paid? Did Tony pay you? It's...
Yeah, I don't think we've ever really dove into it because, like Tony was well off, so we never really had to worry about whether he was making an income. And like, I guess a lot of them lived at the compound or they were always there. We don't really know a lot of people's financial situations. I mean, I'd like to believe that because of that whole Civil War thing, anyone on Cap's side, even if the Avengers do get paid, I don't think anyone from Cap's side does. That's the conclusion I came to, which is why Sam wouldn't. Or maybe it's just that everyone doesn't. But then like, it's a weird question because a lot of people like make that their profession, Yeah, I think it's interesting. I guess like, out of necessity, I don't think they would need to get paid. Like, I think it's one of the things we do. Like, they do it for the honor, but at the same time, you have to think, like,
they still got to pay taxes.
Right?
You still got bills and food to eat when you're an Avenger. So it's like, where's the yearly income coming from? Do you get a salary?
Right, exactly. So my mind went to like, maybe it's because he was on Cap's side for the Civil War Sokovia Accords thing. That was the only reason why I could think that, like, Sam wouldn't get paid or not as much, or yeah.
So then Sarah says something interesting about their dad. She says he even knows who our father was and he still won't help us, something along those lines, to which I wanted to look into who this Paul Wilson character is. We know that his name is Paul because the name of the boat is Paul and Darlene, their parents' names. So I looked into Paul.
That was one of my Easter eggs. You already got it.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dale.
No, it's fine. I mean, like, yeah, it's the names of the parents from the comics too. So it's just like a little like, yeah, it's the same. Wink, wink.
So I looked into the parents just because I thought that was an interesting line to include. I was like, oh, so do we have to pay attention to who Paul Wilson was? I'll look into it if you would like me to, Marvel. So I looked into it and I found out that Paul Wilson was just like a very well-known minister in Harlem, New York. It said he was, and that he actually died trying to break up a street fight. And then like it was only like a few weeks or a few months later that his mother was also murdered. I forget how, but if that's the story and the narrative that they're going with, that's a very like tough thing to deal with in your family, a double murder on two
Yeah.
different, nights.
Yeah.
It's no wonder why it would make sense if that's how we find out that their parents died. It makes sense why Sam became the man that he is today, kind of thing.
Mhm.
So then Sarah turns on the news report where we see the US government. I don't know if he's a senator or someone a part of the military or the president even. I wasn't really paying attention to he's the other white guy that I'm just going to refer to as white guy from here on out. They introduce us to the knockoff Captain America who has the shield that Sam just donated to the Smithsonian,
Yeah.
and that
And
is
now it's
how
out.
we
Ooh.
end our that was the big cliffhanger that they ended us on, is that there's this
Do you
Cap 2.0.
do you think the intention was always like we need to get the shield in the Smithsonian so we can then like make our own cap and have our own government cap? Or do you think it was one of those things where once Sam said I want to donate the shield to the Smithsonian, that's when they were like, let's do this idea. Like, do you think they prompted Sam to give it up, or do you think Sam gave it up in the first place?
Well, as we saw from Endgame, right off the bat, Sam is like very hesitant to accept this gift from Steve. And I think that it was either going to go one of two ways. I thought, like, being like, for the US government, they probably were thinking, well, if Sam doesn't step up and become, Captain Falcon, then we'll have to coax it out of him somehow. If they
Mhm.
even knew that Sam was in possession of the shield, which I'm sure he had to, if Rhodey knew that he was in possession of the shield, then I don't see why, the military or,
Right.
the US government as a whole wouldn't know where the shield was. Because I think it was important to them, because the conversation that we had from Rhodey at the beginning, alliances are all torn apart, the world's broken. The US government's probably has been looking for, in these few months after the blip, has probably been looking for someone to just fulfill the role as Captain America, even if it's not the biggest, bravest guy that they can actually send into combat.
Right.
I genuinely just think that they're looking for someone to just, be the poster child for America, so that other countries just see, oh, they have a new Captain America, even if he's just a phony guy wearing, holding the shield, we won't mess with them, kind of thing. Like, I really
Mhm.
just think that he's kind of, I'm forgetting the word. I want to say scapegoat, but that's not the right word.
No.
Do you know what
It's
I'm
almost
saying
like
though? Like,
it's the
he's like,
Mandarin thing. It's the Mandarin.
yes, yes, he's
It's exactly that, except it's more good
a
than bad. Like,
facade, a front, if you
boom,
will.
there you go. There you go.
So I think that they were either gonna bank on Sam being like, yes, I am the new Captain America, hear me
Mhm.
roar, or they were gonna have to go into plan B, which was get the shield from him somehow, get this new guy's Captain America. So I don't necessarily think that, oh, they were, scheming in the background, like trying to get the shield from him. I think that it was just Sam's good heartedness that was like, you know what, I'm gonna do what I think is right, because I'm just not the man who could live up to Steve Rogers. So, and I don't think that person, and I don't think Sam even thinks that person exists. So that's why he was like,
Yeah.
this needs to just be, memorialized for Steve, because there will never be another Captain America like Steve. Which
Right.
I was thinking about it, and I was like, I kind of can't blame him. That's big shoes to fill.
Oh, of course.
Super big shoes.
Yeah. Those like Hulk shoes. Yeah, so yeah, so that's our first episode. It was a lot of exposition, and I think like obviously a show needs that, but I think when you only have 6 episodes, I was like, this is it? Like, okay, we only have 5 left. Like it feels like
Mm,
there's a lot set up that like I wish they'd almost gone through this a little bit quicker so then we could really dive into what's next, because we
mm.
haven't even seen Bucky and Sam team up yet. And I think that's the most interesting thing, is like this was just them completely on their own. I almost would have liked them to do what they did with WandaVision and drop like episodes 1 and 2 first, just
Oh,
because I
okay.
think like I just think this is not enough of a cliffhanger for me to be like, oh my god, I need to see what happens next. But it's almost like, wait, that's like where you're gonna leave it? Like they haven't even teamed up yet. Like part of me is almost annoyed that they left it up in the air like that. So I'm interested to see them team up and for what reason they do come together. I mean, I think the obvious would be, hey, they've got Steve's shield now. We need to like get a hold of that. Like that's our
Right.
thing. Because we've seen him in the trailers, they have his shield. It's like they're gonna get it. It's just like,
Somehow. Yeah.
who's the big villain here? I'm assuming it's not the Smithsonian. I'm assuming they'll get it pretty handily if it's in the trailers. I'm assuming the bigger villain is, these flag, what are they called? The flag.
Flag smashers?
Yeah, the flag smashers. I think those are the ones, who are the main villain. And,
Flag smashers and LAF, and we have this knockoff Cap that I was like,
I don't think knockoff Cap is a villain.
I don't think he's a villain, but I definitely think that he's an obstacle that they're gonna have to deal with.
Yeah. But I think that'll be dealt with sooner rather than later. What do we think in terms of what was Bucky's friend's name? The old man?
Yori.
Yeah. What do you foresee happening with the Yori storyline? Because that was the most intriguing to me.
Yeah, totally. So I definitely, like I said, at some point, the cat's gonna come out of the bag. Like Bucky's gonna. It's if not Bucky telling him what went down, it's going to be, they might play it from a different angle and have Yori find out from a third party and then be like, so you knew this whole time and you didn't even tell me. Like I had to find out from another source.
Yeah.
And that could be like a huge wrench in his relationship. It could set him back with his amendments. Yeah, that's gonna be a tough one to get through because it's like, it's almost gonna be like another, like a Tony Stark with the parents part 2 kind of thing, which is interesting that they're playing out the same storyline twice because, he was brainwashed. He did not know what he was doing. He was read a list of words from a little red notebook. It was like system engaged. And then he just was a mindless, like zombie who just did whatever he was told. So it's like, you want to be upset for them because yes, he lost his son. Yes, Tony lost his parents. But at the same time, it's like, you cannot blame the man who you've gotten to know, who sits in front of you, who's fought by your side. You cannot blame this person. I think that Bucky's doing everything that he can to rewrite his wrongs. And, we'll see what happens. Hopefully Yori doesn't, try to fight him to the death like Tony does.
Yeah.
But do you want to talk about Easter eggs still?
Yeah. So that was basically the episode recap. As I said, like it's a lot of setup. Like we can't really get into the juice of it yet because it is just set up. And again, like I said in the beginning, like I was not the hugest fan of this episode, just also because of coming off of WandaVision that was so different straight from the get-go. Like I knew this was going to be more of the traditional Marvel, but it just seemed so traditional that I was like, all right, like I'm waiting for something new. And, it was interesting. Like I definitely was interested and I want to keep watching, but I'm hoping it only gets more exciting down the road. All right, so my first Easter egg was what we kind of talked about earlier with the boat, that the names on the boat are Paul and Darlene, which are the names of Sam's parents in the comics. That's a little wink there. I don't think we'll get too much into their backstory, but it's just a nice little homage.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so in the Smithsonian exhibit, we do see in one of the panels, one of the big shot where it's like all those big pictures, there's a picture of the cover of Captain America comic book #1. The original Jack Kirby Captain America comic book is there. So like we've almost kind of established that like comic books in this universe are written about the people that actually exist in this world.
Oh wow,
which I thought was pretty cool. So comic books do exist in there because it's the cover of Captain America punching Adolf Hitler. Like that's like the first comic book cover ever made. Yeah. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, and comic books, I know I'm bringing this up again, but comic books also exist in the X-Men universe as well.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, like we have comic books, but the comic books are about the people that exist in this universe. So it's more like, it's almost like if we were to make like comic books about The Rock, because he's The Rock, like he actually exists. It's almost like baseball cards. Like these are people who exist that we just, make art and stories about. It's interesting. And then in Bucky's notebook, there are two names that I noticed that really stuck out to me. One was H. Zemo, which as we know is Helmut Zemo. And we know there's going to be some sort of Helmut Zemo something coming down the line.
Oh, and him as we have to deal with at some point as an antagonist. So we have LAF, the Flag Smashers, and Helmut Zemo.
Well, I'm assuming Helmut Zemo and the Flag Smashers have
are one and the same.
Yeah, I think so. But I was trying to keep it hidden from you because I wasn't sure how much you knew, but I think they make it very clear, just with all the trailers, obviously, because he was in the trailers, and then his name is on the poster. He's on the poster, so like he's been everywhere. So at this point, it's like cat's out of the bag. I'm sorry if you didn't know. If you're listening to us, like I'm sorry. But like, yeah, he's in it, but he didn't come yet, so we're not going to talk about him yet. I do have a little clip to show when he is introduced of me trolling you on our villains ranking, saying, "Oh gosh, I wish Helmut Zemo had his own series," because I was going to see if that came back to like.
Oh, really?
Confuse you later. I'll play the clip. I'll play the clip right now. If only they could make a show about Zemo to like tell us, what his deal is, but that won't happen. He's not a Loki. So that was the clip. I just played the clip. You'll see it later.
Wow.
All right. Yeah. So I did troll you a little bit.
You did. You got me, Dill.
Yeah, that was actually it for. Oh yeah, the other name in the book was L. Kaminsky. Len Kaminsky was an '80s Marvel writer and an editor, so it just could be another homage to that. Again, like this is not as detailed as like WandaVision, where every little thing is something in the bigger picture. This is very surface value, surface level. Kind of what we're used to with Marvel before it started going in like the interesting like Guardians of the Galaxy and WandaVision directions of like innovative uniqueness. Again, there are still aspects of this that are innovative and unique. Seeing a superhero go to therapy is like really awesome, like to see. Like it keeps it grounded, it keeps it human. But again, like the action and like the overall story is very much like your standard Marvel. What do you think of the action sequence? We kind of breezed over it. What did you think of that?
Sam's whole thing in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I was half watching it, half eating sushi.
Okay.
I was like, sushi's not the snack to have because I'm constantly having to like look down with like my chopsticks and like, go for my soy sauce. And no, I watched it again and I thought that it was cool. I thought that, we got to see him incorporate Red Wing more, which I thought was interesting. That he has this kind of like AI thing that's able to, listen to his commands and everything, almost like his very less advanced version of Vision. Yeah. And I think that it's fun to watch Sam because I feel like before, he kind of just like flew around and like had guns. So it was like, he was very like run of the mill in all the earlier stuff that we saw him in, Winter Soldier, Civil War, all that stuff. So it was cool to like watch him like stand alone and like really, take on this group of people. And, I thought that I thought that it was fine.
Yeah.
Nothing too exciting. I'm really looking forward to more combat stuff with Bucky, just because like he does a lot more hand to hand and with all the knife stuff, which like Winter Soldiers has, if I would say, the best hand to hand combat throughout the entire MCU. That's just so exciting and thrilling to watch. So I'm looking forward more to him than I am Sam, if I'm being honest.
I will be honest. I think they honestly didn't show enough of what Sam was capable of in the previous movie. So I did like the sequence to kind of show like just how cool his powers are in terms of like the flight. And, it's we've seen Iron Man fly. We've seen other people fly. But the way his like the wings look and the way he can kind of like spin around and get into those small areas.
Totally.
I thought it was really interesting. I thought it was a good way. I think it went on a little bit too long to where I was like, all right, I get it. Yeah, but it was fun. It was interesting to see that like start with an action sequence where WandaVision, it was like we didn't get an action sequence till like episode 9.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was very interesting. Is there anything else on your end in terms of Easter eggs?
Yeah, I actually have an Easter egg.
Cool.
I did a little bit of an
Easter's
insane.
coming soon, so we're gonna have Easter eggs on Easter.
Easter eggs everywhere come April. Actually, it's like very soon. I always think Easter's at like the end of April. It's like right there at the beginning.
It's April 4th. Yeah. So the day after that, we will be podcasting for all of you with Easter eggs. Maybe we'll dress up in our best Easter garb.
That would be, we wear like pastels. That would be so fun and cute.
Sure. Yeah. Let's try it out.
Okay. So my Easter egg that I saw, Numbers Girl Strikes Again. I saw numbers on the screen. I had to look into them, even though some of the numbers failed me from WandaVision. I said, you know what? I'm just going to look into them. You never know. And I'm glad I did, because I think I got something real interesting here to show you. So when one of the American Air Force captains, generals, is talking to Sam in the beginning about LAF, we get a shot of a screen that kind of shows all of the different members of LAF that at least that they know of, and we see one from Spain, one from Norway. I think the other one's from Russia. I wrote it down. Hold on.
Okay.
Prague, Norway, and Spain. So we kind of see that these guys are all over the place. And next to them aren't names. They actually have, I guess, identification numbers. So one of the numbers that I wrote down was 8734-C. So I looked into this, and it led me to a Marvel Wiki fandom page where there actually is an Earth 8734.
Oh.
So I looked into this Earth 734, and it didn't even really bring me to anything about that Earth specifically, but really just a character from that Earth 8734. And her name is, get ready for another butchered name, boys and girls, Crystalia Amaculin.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Try my best. So
right, yeah, try your best.
So that's where I'm thinking okay, I just hit my, what is this called?
Your pop filter?
Pop filter. I was going to call it a pop socket. I was like, that's not a pop socket. I just hit my pop socket. I just hit my pop filter. I'm so sorry for the audio listeners.
Yeah, headphone people, I'm so sorry.
So I think this Crystalia character comes from Earth 8734, and she was created by the Kree as a weapon to consume planets, so the Krees can become the masters of the universe. We know that Kree is where Captain Marvel gets taken to. That's what Yon-Rogg is. That's where Ronan comes from. They're all Kree. And she's a part of this group called the Inhumans. And there is a television series from 2017, a one series show called Inhumans. And I looked into it, and there actually is a character from that show named Crystal. So I don't know if they're telling us, like, nudge, nudge, wink, wink into this series or this character or whatever, especially because the Kree do play an important role in Captain Marvel and in the Skrulls' lives, who we now see kind of infiltrated WandaVision as well. A Skrull came down. And Far From Home. You know, both of these alien life forms are playing prominent roles in the MCU. So I don't know if they're, if that was just an Easter egg, a quick little just like, thing for crazy people like me that look into literally every single detail on the screen, or if maybe we'll get a taste of this character somewhere down the line. But I'm kind of impressed with myself for finding that. That's a good
deep dive. Nicely done.
I just think it's too I even wrote down in my notes, I said coincidence, probably, because I think that it's interesting that they would have 8734 and then -C and have the only character from this universe be Crystalia. So we shall see. That's my I've always
wondered if they are going to bring in those TV, like the Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, like those characters, if they're ever going to bring them into the Marvel movie stuff, because, their stuff was specifically for Netflix, but then like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. does have some tie-ins to the MCU. So who knows? Maybe we will see, some of the Inhumans, finding their ways into this show or one of those other series, because those series were seemingly supposed to be separate from the movies, but you never know now. Now we have Marvel's Cinematic Universe series that are not really cinematic but are still cinematic. It's weird, but
yeah.
So that was all you got?
Yep, that was all I had when it came to Easter eggs.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, yours was a really, really big one. Yeah. So, a little bit of a shorter episode, but again, like there's a lot of like exposition here that we're obviously going to expand on more later. So I'm very excited. First episode, just overall thoughts, Kelsey. What do you think?
Like I said, I really liked it. I really liked looking into Bucky's storyline because, like Wanda, he has a lot he has to deal with, being this man out of time and and, figuring out who he is. They literally say in his therapy session, she's like, you have to figure out who you are. You've literally just been going from fight to fight to fight. You need to figure out who you are and where you fit into life, not being a soldier. And I think that's going to be really fascinating to watch. And I'm excited to look at delve deeper into Sam's family stuff. I think that's not as interesting, I gotta say, but I do like how someone pointed this out to me on TikTok that a lot of what's happening in Captain America. Whoa, what am I saying? A lot of what's happening in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I almost said Captain America, the Winter Soldier, just because that's just muscle memory or whatever.
Yeah.
But what's happening in this show is has a lot of parallels between what's going on in real life, especially with what's going on with Sam and his sister. That we had this year-long pandemic. We've had communities be more affected, unfortunately, by this tragedy we've all been living through. And we have these people, frontliners, our heroes, our nurses, our doctors, people kind of mirroring the Avengers in the Avengers universe, who can't even get loans from the bank, who can't get the help and the support that they need, no matter how many times they lay down their life for someone else, that we're seeing with Sam's storyline. So I think that, it's very smart of them to kind of have this parallel, this metaphor kind of happening in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So I'm excited to watch that unfold as well.
Definitely. Well, that was an awesome takeaway, Kelsey. Where can they find you, Kels, all over the internet and social media universe?
Oh, you can find me a bunch of places. You can find me on Instagram, Kelsey A. Kilpatrick. You can find me on TikTok at Koz13. That's KOZ13. Or you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Koz Productions, KOZ Productions.
Nice. And you can find me at Dylan_Randazzo on Twitter. You can find me for food TikToks, music TikToks, movie TikToks at Dylan Randazzo 417 on TikTok. And you can find me, of course, here if you're watching on the Dill Pickle Movie Network. If you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere, thank you so much for listening. If you could give us a review saying if you like it, if there are things you don't like about us that you want to, yes, Kelsey?
Well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt your thing at the end, but I just wanted to say I watched the first 2 episodes of the other podcast that you do, the Great American Movie Film, the Great American Film Off.
Yes.
Right. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. Your friend Crosby, great. You, great. I just wanted to shout this out right here, right now. So that our Marvel listeners, if they don't already are subscribed to your other stuff or listening to your other stuff, that they should definitely check that out as well. You did your first 2 episodes on what movies make you cry the most, and the other one was mid-2000s/mid 2010s DreamWorks films, and they're both thoroughly enjoyable episodes. And if you get to his Instagram in time, you can write in what movie you think should be talked about on the podcast, which I learned watching that podcast, and I'm a little upset that I missed out on that, because
I will tell you, on March 26th we will be putting out a poll on my Instagram. If you just search my name on Instagram, you'll find my Instagram. I will put up a poll on my story of the next show we're doing, Crosby and I, is what is the best pre-MCU superhero movie. So that could be Marvel, DC, Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, whatever, as long as it's before 2008 when Iron Man came out. So I will put out my poll and you all can comment away on that. I know Kelsey has her thoughts.
I can't wait to chime in for that one.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Kelsey, for that. Check me out on my other podcast too. Yeah, Great American Film Off. I'll put like my little video up there in the top right if you want to click on my most recent episode of that. Again, if you're listening on audio, thank you so much. Leave a little review if you have one. It always helps. Share it around, download it on multiple services. If you have Spotify, Apple, it doesn't cost any money. You just download it on all those apps and just click play and give us those likes, give us those views there, and also on the Dill Pickle Movie Network here on YouTube. It's been awesome to see this channel grow and to see all the positive reception. Comment away. We read all your comments on these videos, and we may even address them if there are some really profound, crazy realizations that we didn't realize that you might have. Like, spill your Easter eggs or any theories you have in the bottom. Like, we'd love to hear them. We'd love to discuss them. And of course, as Kelsey said, you can check me out on my other podcast, Great American Film Off, and here every single Monday at Marvel-ous Movie Mondays with Kelsey and Dill. It's been really fun. We're diving into a whole new show. I'm so excited.
Riveting stuff happening here.
Yeah. All right. So on behalf of Kelsey and I, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
My gamer tag is NoobMaster69. My cousin made it.